Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated November 3rd, 2022. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles. Now, these articles are going to be regarding the banks, and the second article is regarding the al-Qaeda and how US has designated it as global terrorist. Alright, so these articles are important, but this doesn't discard the fact that other articles are not important for the civil services examination. So here's a list of important newspaper articles which were present in the Hindu newspaper, which can be read from the Hindu newspaper, and they are going to be very important, very significant, but they do not require that kind of understanding, and that is why we are going to discuss just two important newspaper articles. If this is very clear to you, do subscribe to this channel to never miss an update from the bureaucratic way, and join us on Telegram to get all the important PDFs important for the civil services examination. So with this, let's now head to the first important newspaper article for the day. Now, this particular newspaper article was present in the world section, and it talks about what is known as al-Qaeda. It also talks about a unit known as Pakistan Taliban and how US has designated them as terrorist. Now, this article says that the US has added a key anti-Pakistan militant group and its al-Qaeda branch to its list of global terrorists, triggering sanctions against the groups amid a resurgence of militant violence in the Islamic nation. Now, these two militant groups are significant because they are posing a threat to the Pakistan, and that is why the US, now being its so-called roughly called friend, is now doing all of these things. Now, both groups operate from Afghanistan, but they have hideouts in Pakistan's former tribal region in the northwest and elsewhere as well. Now, these two groups are basically Tehreek-e-Taliban and Pakistan Al-Qaeda branch, and they have been designated now as global terrorists, and this has triggered sanctions against the group. We will talk about later how these sanctions are going to affect them. But before that, we need to understand what is this TTP, right? Tehreek-e-Taliban is basically a Pakistan militant group. Now it is basically acting against the Pakistan, and that is why the US has posed sanctions against it. Now TTP, after this particular news, has resumed attacks across Pakistan days after ending a ceasefire with the country. Now the State Department of the United States said it has designated the TTP and Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent as specially designated global terrorists. Now see the wordings. In India, it has designated these groups as specially designated global terrorists, and in the Pakistan they have designated it as global terrorists. They are now pleasing both India and Pakistan that we are looking after you, we are killing all of these, we are going to kill, or we are going to pose sanctions on these particular terrorist groups. All right, so this is what United States is saying right now. And what is the result of these particular sanctions? So as a result, all the property and interest in the property of these and the property interest in the property of those designated that are subject to US jurisdiction are being blocked, and the United States also named 4 members of the groups as terrorists. For example, the 4 members are going to be what? Osama Mahmoud, who is the head of the Al-Qaeda branch; Yahya Ghori, who is the deputy chief of the Al-Qaeda's branch. Now we have also Muhammad Maruf, who is responsible for the recruitment for the group, and we also have TTP's leader, who is known as Qari Amzad, who oversees militant attacks in the northwest Pakistan. All of these people are going to be designated as terrorists. Now the TTP has asked its fighters to target security forces across the Pakistan. So the attacks on the Pakistan are going to increase. All right. So these are some of the things which were said in this particular newspaper article. This article becomes very important in order to understand the security condition all around in India and Pakistan, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now this particular newspaper article was regarding the bank credit. Now it says that bank credit grew almost 17%. Mind it, 17% in fortnight to November 18. We are going to discuss what are the possible implications of it, as well as how this is going to affect us, right? So this is important. Now Indian banking systems outstanding credit grew by 16.96% for fortnight ended November 18th, the Reserve Bank said on Friday, now the credit grew to 133.29 lakh crore for the fortnight ended November 18 as against 113.96 lakh crore on November 19, 2021, the Reserve Bank of India said. Now, what's significant for us is to realize that we need to summarize all of the information present in this article, because there may be some of the rubbish as well, right? So now the bank credit, according to this particular newspaper article, grew at around 133.29 lakh crore to 133.29 lakh crore for the period, while the deposit growth came at 9.3%, with the overall base of 177.15 lakh crore. We are not concerned about the numbers. What we are concerned about is what are the factors driving this particular growth in the credit. Now, the current fiscal has seen steady growth in credit driven by factors such as economic growth. The second factor is the borrowers shifting to the banks amid rising interest rates. Now, the RBI has increased the rising interest rates by a substantial number, and that is why the people are now shifting towards the bank. They are now putting all their money into the banks because they feel that their money is more safe in the banks. Now, in financial year 2021 to 2022, bank credit rose by 8.59% and deposits by 8.94%, which is a very good day for the business, for the banks, right? Because their credits are growing, their deposits are growing, and they are becoming more stronger. And if they are more stronger, then they will be able to navigate smoother in the financial crisis, because the world is at the verge of the financial crisis. And if our banks are strong, then our money is safe, right? This is important, this is significant. Now let's talk about how do banks function in real. Now, overall, the main function of the bank is to serve as an intermediary between the savers and the borrowers, right? We have the depositors, then we have the borrowers. Depositors are who are depositing on money. They are depositing money for some kind of interest that will be paid out to them after a period of time. Then we have the borrowers, for example, the business entities and all of these. Now they are going to take out the loans in order to develop their economy further. They are going to develop the economy further. Now whatever the margin is earned between them, because the loans are going to be deposits are going to be less than the loans, right? The interest rate on deposits is always going to be less than what is the interest rate on the loans, and this margin which is there in between, this is the money that banks earn, right? So banks make money by charging interest on the loans they make, and they also pay interest on the deposits they hold, which is less than the interest charged on the loans. Now they also generate revenue from the fees and other financial products and services. So this is how the banks make money in general. Now let's talk about the Indian context. Now in Indian context, we have the central bank, which is known as the Reserve Bank of India. Now it acts as the regulator of the banking system. Then we have the commercial banks, which function under the Reserve Bank of India. Now in commercial banks, we have three types of entities, basically the public sector banks, private sector banks, and the foreign banks. We also have different kinds of banks as well. For example, we have what is known as the regional rural banks and other banks. We'll talk about them later, but first let's discuss what is the RBI responsible for. Now what is the responsibility of the RBI? First, it formulates and implements monetary policy. It also regulates and supervises the banking sector, and it also promotes financial stability and inclusion. And apart from this, all these responsibilities, it is also the lender of the last resort, which means that whenever you need any kind of financial assistance, banks need any kind of financial assistance, then they look towards the Reserve Bank of India, and that is why it is known as the lender of last resort. So if this is very clear to you, let's move ahead to the commercial banks. Now we have three types of commercial banks. We have talked about it. So the first one are the public sector banks, which are owned and controlled by the government and include state-owned banks and nationalized banks. For example, the SBI, PNB, Bank of Baroda, all of these banks, right? Now we have the private sector banks. Now private sector banks are owned by private individuals or institutions and include both domestic and foreign banks. For example, the SDFC, We have what is known as ICICI. All of these banks are the private sector banks. And then we have the foreign banks. Now, foreign banks are what? The subsidiaries of the foreign banks operating in India. They have the main branch in other country, but their subsidiary is operating in India. This is known as what is called foreign bank. Now that we have understood the Reserve Bank of India, we have also understood the banks. Let's now talk about other aspects as well. For example, all the banks are subject to regulatory oversight of the Reserve Bank of India. Now that's significant because it acts as the regulator. We have talked about it as earlier as well, because that's a function of the Reserve Bank of India. It acts as the regulator for all of these banks, and all of the banks are required to comply with the range of regulations, including those relating to capital adequacy, liquidity, and also the risk management. All of these functions are done by the monetary policies that the Reserve Bank of India implements. For example, what is known as CRR, SLR, all of this, repo rate, reserve repo rate, all of these things comply, or all of these things, all the monetary policies make sure that the commercial banks comply with these policies of the Reserve Bank of India, so that they are more stable. Now, the Indian banking system, apart from the public sector banks, private banks, and the foreign banks, also includes the regional rural banks. We also have the cooperative banks. We also have the small finance banks. Now, these particular banks, these are not having that kind of money like the SBI, but they serve specific segments of the population or geographic areas, and hence they are very important, very significant for the Indian financial system or the Indian banking structure. So this is it regarding the Indian banking system. We have talked about the banking system in general and how do the banks function. We have also talked about the credit growth, which has been seen in the recent past. So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video. And if you found this video to be interesting, very intriguing, and at the same time awesome, then please do subscribe to this channel to never miss an update, right? So have a good day. Bye.